come back here. Come here.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you, Seth. All right. Hybrid is so much more complicated, and we got everybody up there. So those of you on the screen that I can see, the class can see you as well. All right. So Miriam, who's looking up at you, is looking up at the screen and seeing you. But nice. How's the weather in Bend, Oregon doing? And Bob's waving to you. Saying hello there.
Pretty good.
Benja, you
We have
good?
a beautiful sunny day today.
Good. We had rain yesterday. It's been roughly, I did a funeral yesterday for a 47-year-old woman. No, 10 years of battling cancer. And sorry? Yeah, she's three children, twins who are eighth graders, and then one who's a 16-year-old. And there were 500 people there. Like she's really connected in it, right? She's very much connected in the community, and it was one. And I did. Sarah Holtzman is her name. I did her bat mitzvah, Mordechai Valley B'Shalom, when I was there.
Really?
Yeah. So she and I go way back, and I've been involved with her family for the last 30 some odd years. So, and then another one, former Aliyah, a woman named Ann Lubin, young 80 years old, young 80, and she like just very quickly had symptoms and that came out of nowhere, and then like within a week passed away. Yeah. So those are tough ones. All right. Huh?
Gotta count every day.
Every day is right. Miriam knows that as well. Miriam, who has been battling cancer for a while. Yeah. And it is the blood, right? It is treat. And so it's interesting. So the funeral, I said that I deal a lot with people who confront death. And I say some people do it with anger. Some people do it with regret. Some people do it with grace. Some people get demoralized. I mean, there's lots of ways. She fought death. She wouldn't talk about it. Even at the end, even at the very end, we talk about the end. She goes, shh. But it's an interesting model. Well, again, 47.
She had three.
Right. She was going to live to the fullest. And she did. She really, really did. So everybody was really just so moved by her and everything else. All right, let's do a blessing because studying together is a wonderful mitzvah. So let's do Lasok b'divrei Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kisham mitzvotav v'tzivanu lasok b'divrei Torah. Amen. All right. Oh, you know what? In the hybrid model, so I'm not used to this as well. Do you have the material, those of you who are at home, in front of you, or no?
No.
All right. So here's what it is. So it was attached in the email. So we have to figure out how to do this. I'm glad we're having this discussion because there's two choices. I mean, one, I could put it on the screen, but the problem is then you're going to lose seeing us pretty much, I think, and it becomes the screen. Or you can open it up on your screen, it's yourself, because it was in the attachment and it's also on the website. So hold on, let me see something. How do I, huh? Oh, you go to Temple Aliyah, I'm sorry, HAMAKOM. You go to HAMAKOM, .la.org. And then on the website, you go under adult education. But it's up. But you would be, oh my goodness. Okay, hold on. Let me exit full screen. Hold on. All right. All right. Those of you at home, I'm going to, okay, here we go. Okay. So I'm on the screen. You can, you've got, so here's how you would do it. All right. If you were at home, right, if you want to show it on your screen together, you can, where is here's education. Go to adult education. Come on, please. Go to, oh my God, I hate that. Oh, come on. Because these just work differently. Okay. Where is it? Torah today. There we go. The Zoom link. And then here, download the source sheet. Okay. Download. There you go. There it is. All right. And so I can make it bigger. Come on. You come on. Can make it bigger. There you go. Oh, that's way big. All right. It's hard. So I can do it this way, but then I can't see you all on my screen, and we can't see you here at all unless hold on. I don't even know how to do this on this computer. Let me see if it goes like this. I can get back to Zoom, but the problem is we're not going to see. Right. We're not going to see them. But you can sometimes, Steve, do you have any suggestions? But I'm on a Mac is the problem for me.
Yeah, Rabbi, is it a source like from the Tanakh or what?
No, this is a recording. This is, sorry, a photocopy from the Chama Leibowitz. So
Oh,
here's
okay.
the best thing for those of you who are home when we're doing this together is probably to print it out at home, right? That's why I put it up there so you can print it out.
I can see it on a screen. I have it on I can't see everything there and that at the same time. But when we're talking about what you're talking about, then I'll watch the screen. I'll watch what I have on my other screen. So,
All right. And you know what else? I forgot something else that a copy that I made. All right. And I was just saying to somebody, it's so much easier, unfortunately, when everybody, you get used to doing it one way or the other. Okay. I'm going to, let's do it this way. I'm going to go to the sources when we read, and then I'll click back. For those of you online, all right, we'll figure this out together. Hold on, why?
You when we're all on Zoom anyway.
Um,
Bring it up. Computer.
yeah, here, hold on. I just so apologize for this. Two issues, and I'm just not used to this computer as well. Let's try this. This. Oh, that's interesting. Here, come on. Try one more time. Really, how do you utilize anybody use Macs here or no? No, yeah, I use a PC as well. And you can see I can't even move the screen. Nope.
If you do it like you normally do it, and then, it's usually, for me, it makes everybody's faces or the little squares contract on one side, so that you could still see.
Correct. Exactly. So when I'm on my computer in my office, I can do that easily. And this one doesn't, I'm sure if somebody knew what they were doing on a Mac, I'm going to have to do more, would be able to do that. Let me see something here. Take that off. Let me close that for now. Well, I'll leave it there. But literally, I can't move, and I don't know where. Can I get rid of that? That doesn't help. Come on. There it is. Steve, do you know how to use a Mac?
I'm a PC guy of decades, so
Yeah.
I know how to use it if I was physically there, but I can't advise remotely, no.
And so here is, okay, here, let's see if I can do it now. Okay. All right, let's do our best to see what we can do here. I have no idea what's going to happen. So let's start. So we are talking about remembering Amalek. Now, why are we talking about this today? Because this Shabbat is Shabbat Zachor, the Shabbat of remembrance. Do any, we read this when? George, when do we read Shabbat Zachor?
The Shabbos before Purim,
Before Purim.
right?
It's about the Amalekites and how they attacked the Israelites. So
Right.
we're going to read two Torah scrolls this Shabbat.
Right.
We're going to read Tetzaveh, the regular Shabbat, and we're going to read Shabbat from Shabbat Zachor. So let us compare the last paragraph in the Sidra. We also read on Shabbat Zachor with the account of the war with Amalek in Exodus. So on the right-hand side on the left-hand side is Exodus, on the right-hand side is Deuteronomy. Then came Amalek and fought with the Israelites in Rephidim, and Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And the Lord said unto Moses, come on, you. Write this for a memorial in the book and read it aloud to Joshua. And now I can't move the text on the screen. Boy, this is going to be so frustrating. Come on, please. I'm sure there is a way to do this so much easier.
Or you could have printed it out yourself, so you don't have to look at the screen.
So we do have it here. I can just read it so that you can read it, but that becomes very passive for you all. That's why I'm trying to see if I can manipulate and manage the screen. I'm going to have to become proficient in Mac, or we're going to have to go to a PC computer because this is not working. Come on, please. Why won't it move? Just won't scroll. There must be a way to scroll it. The what? Sorry? Yeah, you could. You could enjoy it. You could.
Thought was that we need to let the search committee know that whoever we hire.
Has to have Mac and PC skills. I think that would, I appreciate that.
That's the form of.
All right.
Going like that.
All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. With those of you who are at home, we're gonna read, you're gonna listen, you're gonna do your best. If you're able to pull it up at home like some of you did, or to print it, you'll print it out. And in future weeks, right, it's just gonna be better to print it out. Just those of you, if you're not here, go in the morning beforehand. It'll be posted. It's usually posted the day before. For me, I don't know about Rabbi Cameras, but you can, and then print it out. He may be more proficient on the Mac. All right, so here we go. This is from Exodus. Then came Amalek, fought with Israel and Rephidim. Those of you at home, if you actually want to open a Torah, you can. Exodus 17, chapter 17, verse 8. And the Lord spoke to Moses, write this as a memorial in the book, read it aloud to Joshua, for I will utterly blot out the memory of the Amalekites from under the heaven. And Moses built an altar and called it Adonai Nisi. And he said, the hand of the throne of the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. It's interesting. They didn't include the whole quote there. I'm going to get myself in trouble here. I know this. Let me see something. I'm going to try to, let's see if I can get Safari up here. Let's go Tanakh. Let's go Exodus. Let's go chapter 17. Let's see if I can. I have the same problem, aren't I? Okay. I'm still going to have problem with scrolling. Oh, hold on. There you go. Thank you. Thank you. Wait, come here. I think I might have figured it out. Okay. Chapter 17, we're going to go to verse 8. That's the trick. Steve, you have to go to the side to get it. Sidebar is going to bring it out. There, okay. And Amalek came, because not all of this is in the source that she gives. Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, pick some troops for us and go out to do battle with Amalek. Tomorrow I will station myself at the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek. Well, Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up the top of the hill. This is a story some of you know may not know is this context, and the Hamalelites didn't include this. Whenever Moses held up his hand, right, Israel prevailed, but whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. Many of you know that story. Famous, by the way, Christian paintings in medieval times of Moses being held, like sitting on the rocks. Some of you have seen, and his hands being held up. Right? Whenever he held up his hand, Israel prevailed. Whenever he let it down, Amalek prevailed. Moses' hands grew heavy, so they took a stone, put it under him, and he sat on it. Well, Aaron and Hur, one of each at each side, supported his hands, and thus his hands remained steady until the sun set. Joshua overwhelmed the people of Amalek with his sword. Then Adonai said to Moses, inscribe this as a document, as a reminder, and read aloud to Joshua, I will utterly blot out Amalek from heaven. And Moses built an altar and named it Adonai Nisi. Right? So that is the story from Exodus. Now, if we go to Deuteronomy, chapter 25, verse 17, let's see if I can do this again. Come on, please. Come on, you want to help me, don't you? Somebody? There you go. Thank you. Chapter 25, verse 17. Come on, you. Here's a description in Deuteronomy. Remember what Amalek did to you on your journey after you left.
Mhm.
How undeterred by fear of God, he surprised you on the march when you were famished and weary and cut down all the stragglers of the rear. Therefore, when your God, Adonai, grants you safety from all your enemies around you in the land that your God, Adonai, gives you as a hereditary portion, you shall blot out the memory of Amalek from under the heaven. Do not forget. Pretty short. All right. Hold on. Which of these versions do we read on Shabbat Zachor?
Second.
This is Deuteronomy. George, which one?
Second.
Why do you know that, or what? Just from the content that you?
Well, I'm looking at the art scroll. Okay, I'm cheating.
Okay.
But however, this is tricky. You got to wipe out the memory, but then you got to forget. Now it's kind of you don't forget them, but you've wiped out their memory. You know, Hashem's going to wipe it out, but then he pops up again in Esther. You know, he's still around.
So it's so interesting, right? Even though you want to blot out their name, the fact is, it seems like a contradiction, George, because you are remembering it by blotting it out.
Yeah.
Which is, any of you know where the tradition, as I understand it, of the grogger noise from when you hear Haman's name and making noise? It's from the expression Yamach Shem. So, by the way, the greatest curse, George, for somebody is Yamach Shemo, that his name should be obliterated.
Right.
So what did they do? My understanding is that when they read the Megillah, they would have stones and they wrote the name of Haman on it. And every time his name came up, they would scratch it and hit it so that by the end of the reading, that the name was obliterated and blotted out. Isn't that an interesting theory?
Yes.
Right? Which right? You shall blot out that name. Now, by the way, the rabbis have, and this is not Nechama Leibowitz, the rabbis have trouble with this. What's the trouble with the idea of blotting out, Steve, you share with, like, as a Jewish value, what's the problem with saying we shall annihilate a people?
Because there are good, in any group of people, there are some really good ones that shouldn't be annihilated, in my mind.
All right. And each generation, right? There's a generation previously that was responsible. And this could be a call to go out and look for Amalekites. Right? Are you an Amalekite? Are you an Amalekite? If so, we've got to kill you. So how did the rabbis handle this?
No.
George, you know how how did they
Yeah,
handle
the people got so mixed up that you really can't tell anymore.
There's no more Amalekites.
Yeah, after the exile, everybody scrambled
The
around.
rabbis just said like they're gone. So don't worry about them. But yet we still read it as a reminder. So let's go back to, let me see now if I can navigate now that I've learned a little bit of how to do this. Let me see if I can, yeah, but now I have to actually get the, across the top, the bottom. I've got to get it back to the right-hand side of the document.
This battle took place before they ended.
This is just right, and this is in the HaMaKom says as well that this is
While they're wandering.
correct before they're even thinking about getting into the land. All right, we're going to forget until I have a tutorial on Max. We're going to go back to reading. All right, we're back to the document. Those of you who might have printed at home. We may immediately perceive considerable variation between the two passages. In Exodus, we have a factual account of what happened. Amalek came and fought. There's no evaluation of the event. But in Deuteronomy, the wickedness of Amalek and the feebleness of Israel are thrown into relief. The destruction, hold on. Let's see, I'm going to close this back door here. By the way, Miriam, they say that when we deal with any redesign and reconstruction of the facility, that it has to be flooring that does not have grout. No, everything is noise. Everything you move in this building, you hear from one place to another. And it's the same tile that's in the office area. So when you come, like everything in this place, anytime anybody is rolling something, nobody thought about that when it was designed. So when we redesigned it, anyway.
I didn't design it, I just helped build it.
Okay, I'm just saying. All right. In Exodus, the following factual right we're wiping out Amalek. In Deuteronomy, however, the task of fighting Amalek is imposed on Israel. The difference may be said to derive from the divergent character of these two books of the Pentateuch. Now, this is important. Exodus, like Numbers, recounts the incidents that happened to Israel in the wilderness. In Deuteronomy, Moses devotes his attention to the precepts and tasks which would be obligatory on the people in their homeland, in the organization of their social and political life in accordance with the will of God. As we have had occasions to mention before, Moses speaks as a historian in Exodus and Numbers, but as a lawgiver and moralist in Deuteronomy. The difference between the two passages becomes clear if we bear this in mind. Where the Almighty is setting forth his program for the future, there is no need to dwell on the cruelty of Amalek. The divine will stands in need of no motivation. But in our Sidra, where Israel is commanded a specific precept, that of remembering and blotting out Amalek, the awesome character of the task requires explaining for them to appreciate its necessity. The Torah always strives to appeal to the heart and understanding of the audience. So is that making sense? In Exodus, it's just describing the event. But in Deuteronomy, as they're about to go into the land, everybody, they now have to understand what that's about. And remember, it's the next generation. The generation that experienced it, they knew. They were there to see what happened. But now we have to Moses has to remind this next generation of what really took place. And only when you're there do you know how to feel the tragedy and the real pain of the experience. Isn't that something? For those of you in line, yes, Stan, go ahead.
Well, I think there are Amalekites in every generation, and certainly what happened on October 7th, Hamas was the Amalekites, because they, attacked the weakest, whether or not they're in music festivals or at the end of a line or whatever. It's the same concept.
All right, so we're going to talk about, so Stan, I don't want you to go too far, only because Nechama Leibowitz is going to deal with and try to explain what that means. So yes, so let's, and she's going to give some verses, Stan, to help us understand that better. Let's continue. But in spite of these explanations, commentators in all ages have been puzzled and even thunderstruck by the specific command to wipe out a whole nation and blot out its memory without reservation or qualification. Furthermore, and perhaps the solution lies in this direction, no other nation is described in the Torah by the phrase, and he feared not God. That's going to become the important phrase. Right? So going back, right, into the text, it says, and he feared not God. That's the description of the Amalekites. So now we're going to look at what does that mean, fearing not God? That's Yirat Shamayim. Such an outright condemnation of a whole people does not occur elsewhere. Let us analyze, we're going to go on the next page, implications of this phrase by comparing the contexts in which it is used. We find this expression employed 4 other times in the Torah in connection with heathen people or individuals. All right, so what's the first one? From Genesis 20:11, because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place. What is this story from? This is the story of Abraham when he goes with Sarah to Gerar with Avimelech. And what does Abraham do there? What does he say about Sarah? He says, she is my sister. And why did he lie? And try to protect himself? Because there was not the fear of God in this place. All right? Does everybody understand that first example? Steve and everybody else, you got that first example about Yirat Shamayim. Second one. And Joseph said to them, this do and live, for I fear God. So what is this in the context of? I want you to imagine now, go back in the story of Joseph with his brothers. And remember, he creates that situation where they find the things, right? The money back in the bags. And he says, go back to your father. Remember, they don't know it's him. He hasn't revealed himself yet. And he says, and just leave one of the brothers here and bring back your father. And why should they believe him? This guy that they don't know? Because I fear God. Right? Does everybody understand this? And those of you online? Mm-hmm. Right? They should believe him. He's not an Israelite to them. So even though he's not an Israelite, he fears God. So trust him when he says, if you bring back the father, I will then release your brother as well. All right. Number 3. And you all know this one, I think, many of you, but the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Israel of Egypt commanded them. And it says that they were like these, remember the midwives, that they feared God. Even though they are not Israelites, they feared God. So that's the third one. The fourth example is what we have. Remember what Amalek did unto thee, how he met thee by the way and smote the hindmost of thee and all that were enabled in the rear, and he feared not God. All right, so now we're on the right, we're on page 253, those of you who have the text. What is the common denominator of these contexts? What is the character of the fear of God that animates or should animate those who do not belong to the stock of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and have not accepted the yoke of Torah and its precepts? Evidently, the criterion of God-fearingness, Yirat Shamayim, in all these 4 contexts may be measured by the attitude of the subject to the weak and the stranger. Where the fear of God is lacking, the stranger who is homeless in a foreign land is liable to be murdered. Out of fear of God, the Egyptian prince releases the subjects from prison and sends them home. The midwives transgress the royal command and do not slay the children of the strangers. In our context, Amalek is condemned for killing the weak and smiting the feeble because he feared not God. Right? So Stan, that's trying to talk about, right, what makes the Amalekites different. This is evidently the reason why we were commanded to blot out the memory of Amalek, since they came and fell upon the defenseless and weary without any pretext whatsoever. The children of Israel were not entering their territory, and it was purely a wanton act. Amalek, against whom the Almighty declared eternal war, is not anymore an ethnic or racial concept, but is the archetype of the wanton aggressor who smites the weak and defenseless in every generation. All right, let's leave the text for a moment. All right. So, what does that mean then as part of Shabbat Zachor of reading this on the Shabbat before Purim?
Yeah.
Yeah, George?
Well, the Jews were supposed to be annihilated on Purim, and they were saved by Esther. So,
And so again, they were weak, right? They like
and Haman was supposed to have descended from Amalek.
okay, so right.
In the
So now
Haftorah,
that's
we see that
good.
thing going on.
So by the way, it's a difficult, and here's a difficult idea, George,
Yeah,
because is evil genetically
I know,
predisposed?
I know.
Right, George? That's a
Yeah, I know.
Were destroyed. How could Haman be,
they weren't all destroyed at that time, but now, and there have been like later after Haman. That's early enough. That's a great question. He is described as being a descendant of the Amalekites.
Yeah,
So there is this idea that they want to hold on that somehow evil is passed on from one generation to another. If you don't address it, we're going to talk about it in a moment from Nechama Leibowitz.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And here's now where she's going to give an example from Rashi. Let us now turn to the words of Rashi in explanation of the enigmatic phrase describing the Almighty's declaration of war against Amalek in Exodus. The hand of the throne of the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. For those of you who are online now, hold on, I'm going to leave you for a moment. I'm going to try and find the text because it will be helpful. Hold on, come here, you. Let's go back to, let's see if I can get you. Exodus, come on, 17. And let's see if it'll work here. Come on. Don't you want to help me? Don't you want to help me a little bit? Be kind to me. Come on. You don't want to watch me get frustrated, do you? Come on. Over on this side, anybody? Oh, hello. Wow. How did I do that? Now, come here. Come on. Come on. Be nice. Can you do it from
Talking to your computer.
Can you see me? You got okay. I'm doing this all by accident. Let me see if it's now we can see you and the text. Come on, you. You're not gonna do this for me, are you? Because I want it because it's in the Hebrew actually. And that's why I want to be able to show you on the screen if I can. Hello again. Let's see if we do this. You're gonna do okay. There, I went back to that. Come back here. Don't you want to help me? If it goes full screen, no. We're just gonna smile. Come on, you. You're gonna do. One more time. If it doesn't work, how did I do this before? Right? It was being so nice to me before. Do I have to go to full screen? Do I? Nope. Come on. Ugh. Hold on. Patience, maybe? Nope. No, it doesn't want to do it. All right. I apologize, everybody. I feel terrible that we just not able to navigate this today. I really do. On the screen, yeah, getting everything else that's coming up now. Come here, come here. There it goes. Okay. I'll get this. You know why? It's two fingers on the screen. Steve, don't ever go with Mac. All right. So what do we verse 17? You'll see whether this is worth it or not. It's in the Hebrew.
verse 16?
It is verse 17, 16. There we go. All right. So here is the Hebrew. I'm going to read the Hebrew for those of you, right, on the screen. All right. Mort, we're on the screen up here. Vayomer ki yad al kes yud hey Adonai milchama Adonai ba'amalek midor dor. He said, Vayomer, It means hand upon the throne, kiryad al kes, right, of God, Yud Hey, that be at war with Amalek throughout the ages. Okay. Now, I'm going to paraphrase it. What Rashi is saying is, look here, the word case
Yeah,
the word should be kisei for chair or throne.
right, right,
Anita, we're missing an aleph in here.
right,
What about the name of God? Yud Hey. It's abbreviated as well.
right.
Yud Hey Vav Hey, correct? Do we all agree that? Right now. So what Rashi says is, those of you who are in the text, it's the bottom of page 253. The hand of the Holy One, blessed be He, is raised to swear by His throne to be at war with Amalek and bear him eternal enmity. Why does the text abbreviate the word kisei, thrown into case? Moreover, even God's name is similarly abbreviated. The Holy One, blessed be He, swore that His name and His throne would not be whole until the name of Amalek had been completely blotted out.
Hmm.
Right? George, talk about a creative midrash.
Yeah, it is.
Isn't that something?
It is creative.
Right? So Mort, they take this idea, like trying to understand why is the word kisei, right, thrown abbreviated? Why is the name of God not there? And Miriam, they're trying to understand this whole notion about Amalek, about why are we commanded to annihilate them? And why? Right? Because God's name can only be whole when evil and oppression of the weak, that's his point or her point, are eliminated. But more talk about social justice and looking after the weak. Go ahead.
But I'm wondering, is Amalek really an entity in itself, or just a representation of what the Hebrews will be confronted with for their entire existence? And this is just a prophecy.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think Stan would probably agree with you, right, Stan, that this becomes a model of, if you will, of how we look at evil in the world. Jews in particular, Jewish history, but I want you to understand that Rashi and what Nehemiah is trying to say is take it only out of the Jewish context and to say anything, any entity, any person who is going to attack or abuse the weak, they are evil.
Okay.
Humanity in its entirety.
They wanted to, and by the way, I think that's the move recently to go from, the term anti-Semitism, I talked about that on the high holidays, to Jewish hatred, is to say that any hatred is unacceptable, whether it's against, an ethnic group, whether it's against a religious group, anything. And so, but then we could argue that Jewish hatred is unique. And on the high holidays, I tried to explore that. Any comments from the peanut gallery out there on the screen there? Stan.
Well, I think it's both true. It's unique and the same. But this is what Jewish World Watch and what Rabbi Schulweis wanted to create and did create, for that matter. And I think that essence is also part of this story. You have to extrapolate, but that it's trying to go past the story of Esther and more into the world at large.
Yeah, and I think, right, for Rabbi Schulweis, it was. That's why, and you were there at VBS as well, when he formed the group World Watch, Jewish World Watch, because he said we have to demonstrate that social justice and caring for others is not just Jews taking care of Jews, but it is being a light unto the nations. Correct. There's another, I'm going to go back again to now I have to get back to Deuteronomy. Miriam, I think today that God was certainly trying to test my patience. I think that's what I'm taking this from.
Show God that you have handled it.
Oh, come on, cancel that, please. If I do this, hold on. There we go. Come on, come on, you.
Steve
Come on.
Jobs is testing you, Bob said.
I am. I'm being tested today, is for sure. Come on. Let's see if we can. Come on. Yeah. Nope, nope. I don't want you. I don't want you. I don't want you either. It'll come. Anybody want to sing a song? All right. Deuteronomy. I'm back here yet. All right. I'm going to leave the screen in a second if I don't get my wish. My wife uses a Mac all the time, and whenever I try to use it at home, I can never do this. And then she just laughs at me. Actually, she gets frustrated with me, but but she will enjoy what I went through today. Anyway, let me do this. All right. Remember what Amalek did unto thee, how he met thee by the way. So those of you who have the text in front of you, it's Deuteronomy 25:17. And though he smote you the hindmost way, he's just repeating what they were enfeebled by the rear. The Hebrew is Asher Korcha Baderach. It's translated meet you, but those of you who know Hebrew, the word kar means what? What is kar? Kar is cold.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you say Carly, I'm cold. By the way, kerach is ice. So kar is cold. So how is this related to the word kar, cold, related to meeting? Here we cite one of the explanations given of the term translated as he met them, which might also homiletically speaking of trace the Hebrew word cold. On the bottom of page 254, an expression of cold and heat. He chilled you and cooled you down from boiling. For all the nations were afraid to fight against you. And this one came and began and showed the way to others. This may be compared to a bath of boiling water, which no creature can get into. Comes along a fool and jumps into it. Though he gets scalded, he has cooled it for others. So what does that mean then? This meat and kar and cold and the Israelites. What does it mean? What was this understanding? Anybody on screen? A little bit, Steve, a little bit. So let me try to. When the Israelites left Egypt, the plagues occurred. They got to the sea. It split. They went through. The army of Pharaoh is decimated. They get to Mount Sinai and they hear the voice of God. And all the nations are talking and are afraid of them. Oh my God, they have God on their side. They're amazing, boiling, if you will. Don't go near them. You'll be decimated. And then the Amalekites come in and say, don't have to be afraid of them. They're just human. And they take away the sense of God's people. Now, it's interesting. I want to go back to Israel for a moment and the 73 war, right? The Yom Kippur War. Anwar Sadat, in his autobiography, called it a victory, right? Why? Do you know this about it? He said in the end, even though they lost, he called it a victory. Why? Because it proved that Israel was not invincible. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Everybody, the Arab nations were afraid of Israel. Superior army, air force, you name it. Some argue that that's why that Israel was willing to make peace afterwards, because their invincibility had been taken away and the fear of their invincibility. Isn't that now? Exactly. So the idea of Hamas, why are they, everything they do to degrade the Israelis and everything is to show not only that they're only human, but they're less than human. and we should not be afraid of them, and we can beat them. Scary.
Because what this is saying then is that once one group does that, then other groups will do that. And that may very well be why we're seeing the rise of Jewish hatred.
Well, this was after October 7th, there was this great fear. Remember this, that the Hezbollah in Lebanon were going to join right in. And from Syria, and remember they didn't. They stayed back. There was some action later on, but it took a while. They didn't come in at first. And so when you have a sense of weakness, other people are going to exploit that weakness. So what was the great sin? Go ahead, Stan.
Well, I was going to say that the difference between this war and the war and the Yom Kippur War and all the others was that this is a war with a terrorist organization in a urban setting. The others were wars where were war tanks and artillery and whatever. And this one is a war in which there's hostages. And it changes the whole picture of how wars are fought, how they're negotiated, who to negotiate with. You can't really compare these to any of those others in that.
So Stan, 100% right. And more so, I want to tie it into the Leibowitz is that Hamas attacked the weak.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't attack, they took over an army installation that they had to, but their real goal was to attack the weak. And I mean, clearly all the stories, this family, the children that were taken and others. I mean, that was all part of, Stan, right, as you said, the sense of the most vulnerable. And that's why this attack, the Hamas is seen in that train, like on this Shabbat Zachor, they're going to be thinking of October 7th. Right? In Israel, I will not be surprised if that is the connection. October 7th. Remember, and by the way, unfortunately, sometimes in the political right, if you will, extremists are going to say, and we have to wipe them out.
Yeah.
Right? So that becomes the danger, right? Of turning someone into Amalek means that your obligation is to wipe that evil out. Now, I think we'd all agree that Hamas is the manifestation of that evil.
Do we wipe out Hamas, or do we extend it, which is what's being discussed, to wipe out everybody in Gaza, rather than just wiping out
Hamas. Right. Did everybody, can you hear online what the people are saying? Yeah.
Yes.
So by the way, there was a rabbi just got in trouble recently, conservative rabbi, St. Louis, who wrote that all Gazans are Hamas.
That's not right.
Right? There were some obviously who agreed with that. And by the way, there's those who say, like, there's no case that we know of a Gazan saving or trying to do anything to benefit a hostage.
Yeah, Rabbi.
Yes, George.
Just to add to this, in World War II, where the Nazis were mass murderers, they knew on some level it was wrong. They kind of tried to hide it. These guys are bragging how cruel they are, videoing it, and they're out front with their evil. They're not hiding it somewhere.
Well, hold on, George. George, we have a disagreement. Miriam's going to argue with you for a second.
I disagree with you because they all wore masks. None of them want their faces to be seen. They're hiding behind their masks. So if you're hiding behind your mask, you have to know what you're doing is wrong. If what you think you're doing is right, your face is right out there in the forefront.
No, but it's not an individual. It's Hamas. They came in and murdered, raped, and tortured, in the open. They didn't do it, off some railroad side car, and then shot everybody type thing.
No, but it's interesting. So here's what I will tell you is interesting about Nazi Germany, George, and the story of Purim, is that that they worked when I say they, Nazis and Haman
Right.
worked to change the opinions of the population about the Jews.
Mhm.
The story of Purim, I mean, it says that they were friendly, the Jews and the non-Jews of Persia. They get along, but all of a sudden, one day, they're commanded to kill them. And apparently, according to the calendar, is 11 months until Adar, until the story of Purim. And during that time, dehumanize them.
Yeah.
What did the Nazis have to do, George? They had to dehumanize the Jews so that you could go out and to kill them.
Yeah, but quiet, but they didn't do it in public.
They didn't do what in public? The Germans?
Yeah. In other words, using today's world, they didn't put it on television. Oh, we just, murdered the X number at Auschwitz today. It wasn't it was
Yeah.
as hidden as it could be.
It
Mass
is,
murder.
it's a great, I mean, George poses a question of how public were the Nazis of their actual murder of the Jews.
No, there's smoke rising.
No. But in terms of, again, remember there were people, right, look, there are people who clearly didn't want to believe it. Like
Yeah.
Germans who could smell and to see and who didn't believe it. And even can you really go that far in dehumanizing people to actually kill them? It's one thing to dehumanize, another to kill them. But there was if you look at who wrote the book, it was Deborah Lipstadt, I think, about the press coverage of what was taking place during the Holocaust. And you won't find what took place on the front pages.
Yeah, Rabbi, I
Yes,
just
George.
reading a book, Warsaw Testament by Rachel Auerbach about the Warsaw Ghetto, and there were maybe up to 500,000 Jews enclosed in the ghetto. And for 2 years, they were kind of starved to death. And then they were, train loaded to Treblinka to murder them. It was like not in public, so to speak. It
was, but again,
I mean, there's total evil.
no, George, so hold on 1 second, please. It was a different, the Germans believed that they had an agenda. And so they did it more quiet. They did it quieter because that's how they could achieve their agenda.
Okay.
The goal, George, of Hamas, just like and that's why I compare it to 1973, was to show and take away the invincibility, George. That was their goal. Their
Okay.
goal was to say we can cause harm. They are not superhuman, because they were trying to change the mindset of the Palestinians that we can never win this war.
Right.
And to that degree, they might have won. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Hold on, George. We got more.
I think that the Nazis accomplished what they did because the world was accepting of it.
The world was
accepting of it.
accepting of it. Okay.
That anti-Semitism was prevalent. And there was and I think the analogy has unfortunately reared its head again in this century, that the world accepted what took place on
October 7th. Yeah.
Right.
because the world is anti-Semitic. Things have not changed.
Yeah.
In the United States, I believe that Israel was unnecessary because the United States existed. That was I was happy to see a state of Israel,
Right.
but I felt it really was not.
Right. That America was the exception.
That are really, and boy, have I been.
Yeah. Yep. And that was my sermon, right? On Yom Kippur was about, yep. Anyway, yeah, Stan, I'm gonna give you a last thought here. Go ahead.
Well, I think the Shabbat Zachor and remembering is also relevant because in the press today, they never talk about October 7th and what happened then. all they talk about is what's happening in Gaza today. So, they've totally forgot basically why this started and how it's going to happen again or would happen again. All they care about now in the world press and elsewhere is, what's happening in Gaza today, the poor Palestinian Gazans, they're whatever. The context is
Stan,
gone.
I agree with Stan. I agree with you, and that's why I said it'll be interesting. I think that this Shabbat Zachor, as I suggested, it'll be interesting to see if it happens. Will be focusing on October 7th in Israel, and the question is for how long, Stan? And as I said before, that this will continue to represent that sense of evil, and that connecting Amalek, Haman, and then Hamas on October 7th. That will be the interesting piece. Anyway, my apologies to all of you, those especially on you online. We'll work this out eventually, and figure out. But again, in any week, if you can print it up, those of you at home, it's always going to be easier, I think, to be able to follow and see us online.
Costco and buy a real.
Well, they like these. A lot of people use these computers and like them. I will have to figure this out. We'll figure it out.